I'm Sari Kimbell. I am the creator of Food Business Success, and I help packaged food business entrepreneurs start and grow their packaged food business dream. And looking forward to having this conversation with Katie, who formerly ran a food business and sold it last year. And so we're going to catch up with her. It's actually really good timing because this week's podcast was about having a hard why. And so I think it's really a great conversation to have talk with somebody who has done it and was super passionate about it, but then also decided to shift gears. So I'm going to let you in here, Katie.
First time doing Instagram Live, so
there's my weight. There's my workout room. I love it. I love it. That's what, we're all just learning how to roll with things this year.
That's it.
Hi. Oh my gosh.
How are you?
Long since we've chatted and I've seen you.
Well, thank you so much for asking me to come join today.
Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know we used to talk all the time, but we don't do that so much anymore. So this is super fun. So I'm a little fuzzy on the timeline, but you and I worked together. Was it 2 years ago now, or is it 3?
I think 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah. I know it all blends together.
And you were one of my very first one-on-one clients, and I'm just so grateful that you trusted me enough. We took the plunge together, and it was so fun working with you, and we did a ton together. A lot to be proud of. But yeah, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and and then we'll jump into your story and then catch up and see where you're at today.
Yeah. So my name is Katie Cizo. I started Blue Owl Preserves 5 years ago and had started it just as a have fun at a farmer's market for a summer while I figure out what else I'm doing with my life. It kept going from there, obviously. But Blue Owl Preserves was a low sugar jam. So making jam with less sugar in there so you can get a lot more of the fruit flavor and really enjoy getting to connect with local farmers to source that fruit, source fruit that otherwise would have gone to waste. And then also getting to provide a product that tasted great, but also was a little bit of a healthier option.
Yeah. So jam was your jam, and you started under cottage food, right?
I did, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you had a lot of flavors to start with. I was going through things. I was like, wow, there was like 16 flavors when you. That's a lot.
Yeah,
that many.
And that worked well at farmers markets, where especially in the first couple summers, I would do like the flavor of the week. So I would do a small batch, kind of based on whatever fruit I could get that week.
Yeah.
But then definitely by the time we started working together and we were trying to focus in more on retail, that was not the right fit anymore, and really had to pare down my flavor offerings to kind of just this top couple flavors.
Yeah. So yeah, you were at a place where you had done farmers markets, I think, for 3 summers. You were getting pretty burnt out. Your husband wanted you home. He wanted to go on a vacation, take a weekend. And you had moved from cottage food, but you moved into a kitchen. So you were doing the commercial kitchen thing, but you were in some small retailers, but how do we get to the next step, and what do we need to do to be retail ready, right? And get on bigger store shelves. So so that's when we met up, and then so then we worked together for a while, and then you came back, or we finished our work, and then you came back. And so tell us what happened.
Yeah. So I, first off, was just so thankful that we met when we did, because I was feeling very just kind of lost doing this on my own. And just having somebody else who I could bounce ideas off of and have some accountability, and also just you had more experience in other areas. So it was just like a nice complement of skills. So I was really thankful that you kind of came into my life when you did,
Yeah.
because I certainly don't think the business would have grown as much as it ended up growing if we hadn't started working together.
Yeah.
Um, but our big, launch together was getting accepted into all of the Colorado Whole Foods, so 18 locations around the state. And that involved a lot of, redesigning labels so that they had, barcodes on there, which is something I didn't need with some of the smaller retailers. Um, just putting together all of the submission material for getting accepted into Whole Foods, thinking through how I was going to ramp up production to be able to meet that demand, thinking through my demo booth and,
Right, the demo
gonna,
and
yeah,
promotion.
yeah. So, and right, all of that marketing
Oh, and we had
aspect.
to get you into distribution. We had to go get that.
Yeah, getting into distribution, revamping the website so that it was all going to be fresh and ready. So there was a lot that we got done together, to get ready for that big jump.
Yeah, that was so fun. I mean, we put in the work, and for people who don't know, we did that. I mean, it's like a 9-month cycle. So, I mean, we put in the application, and then, 9 months later, you said, "Hey, I got in. I need your help again."
Yeah,
So,
just okay, I got it. Now what do I do?
now what? So, yeah, that was such a fun day. I was like celebrating right along with you. So it was
Yes.
awesome. So yeah, you did the big launch into Whole Foods. I remember the for people who don't know, free fills are something that grocery stores often will require of you to because we were going in, we narrowed it down to 4 flavors for retail, and then they ask for their each store gets a full case of each flavor. You do the math on that and you're like, oh my gosh, when am I going to pay that back? You're on such a small marketing budget, but we were able to, it's always it's always negotiable, right?
Yes. And I think that, again, was another piece that you helped me with. If I did that math and was like, I can't afford to do this if I have to supply all of this for free to get started. And I feel like you kind of gave me that reminder of, well, things are negotiable, ask those questions. And thankfully, being a small local business, they were able to work with me to waive that requirement. Because I don't think it would have been feasible otherwise.
Right. So you kind of scaled back. I think the first year you were scaling, or you were adding farmers markets, but you were adding some help but also you're an engineer or a scientist, right, by trade. So I work with a lot of engineers and scientists and stuff, and I love it because you guys keep the best spreadsheets in the world. We've had a few engineers on here already, so yeah. But you kept such good records of all the markets you had done over the years and exact what you sold and notes about everything about those markets. So I think you had a good sense of where to spend, where you're going to get the most bang for your buck.
Yeah, and right, I think that helped a lot too with narrowing down what are the 4 flavors that we want to move forward with. That I had 5 years worth or 4 years worth of data to look back and be like, yes, these are going to be the best selling options. And then even we were going to move forward with doing a seasonal flavor, and that didn't end up happening. But again, just having the data to back that up, this is the next option.
Yeah, and so you were kind of starting to say no to things. Was that hard? Were there people that were like, no, we want you to come to this and go to this?
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it definitely was hard, especially because at the beginning, sort of my motto was to just say yes to all new opportunities and to see where it took me. But then at some point, I also had to put some limits on what I could do, both in terms of my capacity and then also just in terms of how I wanted to spend my time otherwise, that I needed to save some weekends for doing stuff with my husband and my friends. And so that was hard to say no to some of those opportunities.
Yeah, but that's, as you evolve the business and you want to grow it and go in other directions, you have to say no sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mentioned to you and opened with this that this week's podcast, the Food Business Success Podcast, week 5, which is super exciting, but is all about why you need a really compelling reason. And so, what was your reason when you started? Like, obviously, it evolved. I'm assuming, right, over time. But like, what do you think your reason was that was really drove you to do this for 5 years?
Yeah. So I think you're exactly right that it did evolve over time. When I first started it, we had just moved back to Colorado. My previous job hadn't been that great, and I wasn't really sure what else I wanted to do. And had sort of said, you know what, why don't I just take the summer, have fun, make jam, hang out at farmers markets, and then I'll figure out, the rest of it come fall.
Yeah.
So when I got started, my why was just to give myself a little bit of gap time to figure out what was next for me. And then that first summer, there was just such an incredible response from my customers, and I was also having a blast. So it was sort of like, okay, well, maybe let's keep going with this and see where it can go. And I think, all throughout, the parts that I loved the most were getting to actually make the jam, and then interacting directly with the people who I was feeding. And that then, though, came at odds with some of the other things that were important in my life, like making time for friends and family and adventure. And so that was part of the reason I made the shift from farmers markets to retail, because I needed to make more space for those other parts of my life. Because I loved farmers markets, they were great, but I didn't want to give up all of my weekends every summer indefinitely. And
It's part of the puzzle, but not the, the long term.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I think too, that's why I did struggle a little bit with some of the growth, is that it was moving past my why. And each time I said yes to new opportunities, it was bringing on other responsibilities and requirements that weren't necessarily fun anymore, or allowing me to connect with my community in the way that I wanted to. And I think that is a big part of the reason why ultimately I decided to end my involvement with Blue Owl and pass it on to someone else to keep growing.
Yeah, that's great. It's fun to see your evolution, and I think you were doing a lot of things. You were sourcing from local farms, you were visiting the farms, you're an environmental scientist, like you're really into sustainability and connecting people with their food and that kind of small scale. And then I think you definitely, we always struggle, or we talked a lot about the push pull and like how fast do you go, and you were definitely, I work with some entrepreneurs that are just like, I'm all in, let's jump in the deep end. And I was like, we gotta put another let's put the other foot in the water.
Yeah. I am very risk adverse. I like taking it little step by little step, which worked for me. But I think also, in somebody else's hands, the business also could have grown a lot faster. But I feel like I just needed to go at the pace that felt right for me.
Yeah, so we were always trying to balance, like, okay, well, how can we just push you a little bit, but also, like, we don't have, your timing's fine. Like, there's nothing wrong with your timing, and everybody's going to have their own pace. And as long as you're kind of willing to, I think you got to know what's best for you, and you're hold to what's authentic and true for you. But yeah, if you're a little bit more willing to take some more risks, then you could probably move it along faster, but you were also okay at the pace you were at. So do you feel like you did, I actually just recorded this week's podcast, or well, it's not this week, but a podcast today about kind of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You did a lot of that for you, for sure.
Yes. Again, like you mentioned, my background's in engineering and environmental science. I've never taken a class in business. I never dreamed of owning my own business. So every new step was new, and a little overwhelming and just outside of my comfort zone. So I feel like I spent a lot of these past 5 years being uncomfortable. And one of my kind of guidelines for myself was that I didn't want fear to stop me from doing something. That just because I was nervous about a next step, that wasn't a reason to not take it.
Yeah.
Again, I still feel like I needed to take small steps, but those steps needed to occur. So yeah, I guess kind of also just finding that balance of not overwhelming yourself too much, but also you have to get into that uncomfortable zone if you're going to keep growing.
Yeah. I mean, everything from, I'm sure, even just that first farmer's market and like setting up your point of sale system and then, yeah, evolving it, going into a kitchen. And even when, I'm sure when we talked and you decided to work with me, like that's out of your comfort zone, right? Like,
Step two, yeah.
and then doing demos and
Yeah, exactly. It was like there's so many new next steps in the process of having a food business. And I just recently went back through and pulled together all of the pictures that I have of Blue Owl and put together a little memory photo album. And it was really cool seeing that very first farmer's market booth and trying to remember what it felt like setting up for the first time versus setting up at my last farmer's market and just how different that experience was.
oh man. So yeah, I guess we should kind of finish the story. And so so you were in Whole Foods, I can't remember, was it 9 months or it was no, I mean a little while where we were cruising along. This is all pre-COVID. So so when was that was it last fall?
I launched last May.
Okay.
So yeah, started last May. And then as we kind of got towards the end of the year last year, was starting to think, you know what, I'm not loving this as much as I did before. I think part of it too, again, the reason I started this business was until I could figure out what else I wanted to do. And I've been teaching environmental science and loving that. And there was the opportunity to do more of that. So it kind of felt like, you know what, now's a good time. I've grown it more than I ever could have imagined. I think, us getting into Whole Foods was like a huge check mark, and it was like, I have succeeded.
No matter what happens, you cannot take that away from me. Yeah.
So, and that was a hard decision though, for sure. This was my baby and something I've been doing for 5 years. And so trying to decide, and I guess to also preface that, every year I would go through a period of, am I continuing this? Am I not? And I'm thankful that every year prior to that, I hadn't decided to end, because I think it would have felt like there was a lot of unfinished business. The ending when I did feels like it was the right time. Right. And then I guess the exciting thing too was that my time ended, but I was able to sell the business. So the jam gets to continue, which is great, because I think the product itself is wonderful and it has a great future ahead of it. I just wasn't the right person to keep taking it there.
Yeah, because we talked about that summer about like, okay, we really do need to invest in some promotions, or then do we go to a co-packer, or some of those things that are going to really help you be more profitable, but you have to make that bigger investment in. And to your credit, I mean, you always were really good about like self-reflection and being like, I'm gonna think about that, and then putting that up against your value system, and like, no, I'm not. That's not where I want to go. I'm not. Yeah.
And I think the co-packing was kind of a big line for me. Of I really liked making the jam, and I sort of felt like if I'm not doing that, then what's my role here? And so the idea of passing off production to a co-packer just never really felt like it was the right fit for me. I also recognized that it was probably the most logical next step if we were going to continue growing. And so that's kind of where it came up with, having to balance like, that just doesn't feel like the right fit for me.
Yeah. And I mean, to your credit, getting on Whole Foods, but I mean, I'm sure can speak to like, yeah, first you get on the shelf and you work really hard to get on the shelf, and then you got to get off the shelf. And demos were great to help with that, but
yes, demos were great. They are not nearly as fun as farmers markets. They were definitely also kind of a drain. But they were critical for getting those sales up. And I was really excited when I hit that 6-month mark and checked back in with the rep at Whole Foods, and they said, yeah, we're keeping your product on, because there's sort of, I guess, like that 6-month trial period. So it was really great to know that sales had done well enough that this was a product they wanted to keep on their shelves.
Yeah. And so
a lot of work, a lot of time at those demos.
Yeah. And that was one of the questions, like, should we hire a demo company? I mean, you wanted to do the initial push, but then understandably, like, that wasn't really your zone of genius, right? Where you should be spending your time. And like you said, I mean, you're more introverted, you're like, it's draining, right? You don't want to be spending, just like at the farmer, you're like, I'm trying to come back from the farmer's markets, and now I'm
at farmers markets, at least people want to come and talk to you and try your samples. At supermarkets, people are like, I've got my list, don't talk to me. So, yeah, it's a different vibe, for sure.
And now we're, demo lists everywhere, but so other strategies. So, so that was so great that it lined up. So you sold the jam to Brad B. Jammin', and he was a local company here in Denver. And so I actually just met him, I think I told you the other day, at the farmer's market. And so the owl's gone, but
I figured I had to bring out my owl shirt today because I don't get many opportunities for that. But yes, I was sad that he made the decision to switch away from Blue Owl, but at the same time, I think it made sense. If he already has his own jam company, he might as well bring this product under his own label. But I am sad not to see Blue Owl on the shelf anymore.
You should put it on the back, just like a little
little token so everyone flows. But yeah, I was just really thankful that I had connected with him, and I feel like a lot of our values lined up. One of his driving forces behind his business is, again, trying to get fruit that would otherwise be wasted and turning that into a product. So that definitely was in line with what was important to me. And then also, he was ready to take all of those next steps. He was already working with a co-packer, and he was eager to kind of leverage what we had already accomplished to grow both my brand as well as the products that he already had. So I feel like he had that right passion to take it to that next level beyond that.
So are you proud of yourself? Are you glad you went through all that discomfort?
Yes. Yes, I'm very proud and very thankful that I pushed through all of those times. Again, there were a lot of times along the way where I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I should just stop. And I'm so thankful that I kept going, because I feel like I learned so much more about my own limits, about myself. And yeah, it was just kind of an amazing opportunity to get to see how you could take a small little idea and a fun hobby and actually turn it into, this statewide food brand. So yes, I'm very thankful I kept pushing as far as I did.
Yeah. Because you run marathons, right? Or
triathlons. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So, it's very this is and that's also a mental game too, right? It's mental and physical, but very similar in that you're feeling discomfort and just sitting with it and not giving into the fear and keep moving forward. And I wonder, do you think that some of that running, the things that you do for the triathlons, kind of helped you with that mental game with the business?
I do think you're exactly right that, when you're doing the long distance stuff, there are a lot of times you're uncomfortable and you keep going. So yeah, learning how to push through. And then I think too, for me, my long training sessions were a really good time to just kind of think through a lot of stuff. I had a lot of time for that self-reflection to think through, okay, I've got these 3 different paths ahead of me, and which way do I want to go, and why, and which one feels best. And so yeah, I think they gave just a really good opportunity to explore more deeply all the crazy thoughts going around in my head.
You had a lot of time on some of those runs. I'm sure.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, I think you have so much to be proud of, and I'm so glad that you let me come on that journey with you, and we got to do a lot of it together.
Yeah. And I've been so excited to just see how much you've been growing too. Again, it was really fun that we kind of got started together and got to see each other blossom and grow and push. And so I'm proud of you too.
Thanks. I know. We've like grown up together.
I know.
Grown up and evolved. It's been so fun. And I get to work with the best people, and yeah, count you among those people for sure.
I feel like Colorado food community is a pretty awesome community to get to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. And for some of you guys or people watching, so I just took on the role of president for Colorado Food Works. So if you're in the Colorado area, definitely think about joining us as a networking and community organization. And do you know Christopher from Vuku? Did you ever meet him? Okay, because he's in the Springs where you're at, but he started like a Colorado Springs branch too. So
okay. I think I've gotten emails from him, but haven't met him then.
Yeah. Diane's on here from the Bitter Doctor. She's in the Springs too, so we got to get all the Colorado Springs people together for sure.
Yeah.
So now you're teaching. You picked up another class, and then kind of fortuitous timing, and then
yeah. I definitely did feel like I was thankful to have sold the business when I did, because I think this would have been just an extra stressful time to be figuring out how to grow the business, especially if I wasn't still, have that same fire. But then, it's definitely been interesting of teaching everything online, and it's been a weird semester of not getting to meet my students in person, and I feel like I miss that a lot.
Yeah. I mean, certainly food is still blossoming, and there's a lot of demand for food, and who knows, I'd be curious how Brad's doing, but you could have been busier than ever. I mean, very likely, right?
Yeah.
Grocery stores were like, we need more product, right? But maybe very good timing in that, like, maybe that was a challenge that you just didn't want to take that challenge on anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's been awesome that you've been highlighting some of the food businesses that did just start over this past year. And that's awesome. Right. Maybe having a newer opportunity to jump into that and fill that need within the community. So I think it's awesome to hear too that there's been a lot of businesses that are thriving right now.
Yeah, we're very fortunate. Food's not going anywhere, so in fact, we're eating more and more at home. So, someone Leafberry wrote, it's interesting to see a brand recognize its limits and transition the brand to another owner to take it to the next level. So, I think you should be just as proud of yourself that you kind of recognize that you had reached the end of your time. And I think the worst thing you can do is hang on to something that you're not that passionate about, because at some point you're like, I was like that, I had a really hard why, but now I don't, and so how are you gonna keep getting that, when you have to get up early and go to the kitchen and stick labels on, and you're up late, and then going to farmers markets or driving to demos, and
exactly right. I think it would have been a shame to kind of lose that passion and have the brands not be what it was. I'd rather have ended it, kind of on that high note.
Oh, good. Well, it was so great catching up with you.
Me too.
We had lots of great comments. Totally love you ladies in this conversation. I love that you followed your gut and did what was right for you. Thank you so much for sharing. Hi, Allie. We got lots of great people on here. Well, we are just wrapping up. But if you guys have not listened to the podcast this week, go check that out. Food Business Success Podcast, talking about your hard why. And grateful to Katie for joining us today, talking about starting from cottage food, moving up through farmers markets, getting into Whole Foods in Colorado, distribution, wearing all the business hats, and then selling it and selling it to a great company that will take that brand on. So to the next step, the next level. But if you guys are in Colorado, go definitely go look for. Now it's under Brad B. Jammy. But
Blueberry rhubarb. That's my favorite.
Blueberry rhubarb. Yes, that one's amazing. So awesome. Well, you have a fantastic day. Thanks so much for joining me, Katie.
Yeah, thanks so much for asking. It was good to see you.
Nice to see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.